We did 1 and 2 yesterday. So let's look at number 3 in the equip. I'm on page 104. So I don't know if you remember this, but you read that same passage last year when we were talking about the crucifixion of Christ, the arresting and crucifixion of Christ. So give a description of the sufferings of Christ at the hands of the Romans. What are some things that stood out to you reading it through this time about what Christ suffered? Yeah.
Whipped with a metal balls.
So not only then would that have ripped into his skin and into the tissues and the muscles, the skeletal muscles, but the balls would create these contusions that eventually would burst, right? And just unimaginable suffering. The Jews had a law about flogging. They flogged people as well, but they had a rule about it that you could only give 39 lashes. The law was 40, but they stopped it at 39 in case that someone had miscounted. The Romans had no such law. They just kept flogging until they decided to stop. So we really don't know. Did Jesus get the 40 minus 1, or did he get more? Right? So unimaginable suffering. What else stood out? Yeah. Couldn't, what were you going to say? What else? Yeah, they mocked him, right? Along with the physical abuse. They gave him a stick for a staff and put this crown of thorns. By the way, if you turn around and if you look in that blue can that's on top, you see those thorns? That is very similar to what was pressed into Jesus' head. They didn't just, lay it on top of his head. They pressed it down into his head. And it would have bled profusely because of how vascular the skin is. One of the things that that stands out to me is that he had just been whipped, and they put this raw beam, not a nicely sanded beam, this rough beam on the shoulders of a man who not only had just been whipped, and so he was tired and hurting, but on shoulders that were bloodied. It's really unimaginable, and to think that he would endure that out of love for you, out of love for me. I don't know what other response can be given other than to give our lives. I don't know anybody who would endure that. I don't know anybody that I'd endure it for. Maybe my children, maybe my husband. But Jesus, out of love, endured all of that. Because he loved you that much. Let's look at question 4. It says, now that you've completed this study, provide a biblical explanation for to each existential question to help put together the box top of this puzzle of life. And we'll talk more about this at the beginning of the year next year. But the question of, well, these are questions that everybody asks. at some point in their lives, they think about these things. They're worldview questions. So where do we come from? How does the Bible answer that question? Yeah.
We're created beings made in the image and likeness.
Yeah, we were created by God for God. We were created in the image of God. We were fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And then the question of identity. Who are we? We are creatures of supreme worth, right? Since we were made in God's image, because we were created by God, we are creatures of supreme worth. Think about a painting like the Mona Lisa. It's priceless, right? Not just because of its antiquity, but because of who painted it, right? And so we've got this creation that is of worth, and part of who the Creator was, but also for what the Creator created the picture to be, the painting to be. And that's true of us too. We are, since we're made in God's image and made by God, we have supreme worth. So much worth that God would take on human flesh and suffer the things that we just read about. So we're loved by God, and we've been given certain rights because of that. Also, we've been given certain responsibilities. Rights never come without responsibility. You cannot have rights without responsibility. And we're very concerned about our rights sometimes, right? You can't do that to me. I have a right to, but we also have responsibilities. And then the question of meaning. Why are we here? Why did God put us here on this dirt clod out in space? As Randy Stonehill. It's our purpose. Right, yeah. So we are fallen creatures, but we have free will. We have the free will to accept or reject God. God's not going to force us. He cannot ravish. He can only woo, as C.S. Lewis puts it. So we can accept or reject God. But if we accept, then we're ambassadors for Christ. We're to be taking Christ to other people. And part of that is suffering, just like part of what Jesus was here for was suffering. None of us wants to sign up for Suffering 101, especially a parent. Like, give me the one where my kid gets sick. No, nobody wants to sign up for that. But it is true that we often learn the most in not in our most dark days. So suffering helps us have compassion for those who suffer, for others, and we're to have that compassion. And then morality, the question of morality. How should we live? Yeah. Love God and love others. That's it. I mean, if you want to, boil it down to just 4 words: love God, love others. In fact, Augustine said, "Love God and do as you please." Because if you love God, then you will desire to please Him. It will change what you do. What are some more specific things that we're called to do? Because we love God, because we love others, what are some more specific things we're called to do? Keep His commandments, make disciples,
God and keep
Okay. What else? Yeah. Enjoy his gifts. Over and over again in the Old Testament. And you see it too in Jesus' parables. It says, care for the orphan, the widow, the alien. Over and over and over again. We're called to love and to care for those who are outcasts, who are forgotten in our society. And my daughter likes to put it, include the unincluded. To be that kind of person. Yes? Every human being that has ever lived or ever will is an image bearer of God. And if I looked at everyone that way all the time, I think I would solve a lot of the problems. You're an image bearer. And we're to live that out. And then where are we going? What happens next? We have a choice, don't we? We have a choice. God does not force us to love him, to accept him. That wouldn't be love, right? If it's forced. Love is only love when it's freely given. And so God gave us that gift. But so it depends on what we do with Jesus. And then the engage question says, review the section Your Destiny on pages 384 to 388 and write down some good pointers you can use when sharing with others about their purpose and meaning in life. Why don't we name a few of those that you wrote down that you thought were important?
Christ, but
Yeah, there's definitely evidence. We still reject it, but you're going against all that evidence. Okay. Okay. Gracie. Choices in this life matter. Sometimes just temporally, choices can matter based on, based on something that's just in this life. I have changed what I do in the day. I used to always, when I came to school, leave my purse in my car. I don't do that anymore. Choices can have, they matter, right? Sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways. But then our good choices also matter, right? Matter to God. And they can bear fruit. Go and bear fruit. Well, if you are my disciple, you will bear fruit. Not you might, you will bear fruit. Those are part of our choices. What else? What did someone else write down?
that is
Yeah, we can believe something and believe it to be true, but not follow through on that truth. Does that make sense? And belief, the concept of belief, and we'll talk more about this next year too. The concept of the biblical belief, the biblical idea of belief, is more than just mental assent. Like we tend to think that that's what belief is. It's just like, yeah, I believe there's a God. But it's something that you turn your life over to. It's something that you live out. I could say, I believe that I can sit in this chair and it's not going to break. But what do I have to do to actually know that? I have to sit in it. I have to, it's active. So faith is active. It's not this, it involves a mental assent. But that's not the totality of what faith is. Faith is an acting. So tomorrow, I will hand out the chapter 15 quiz. You will do that together. You can work with someone. You can, if you want to, you can have someone come up here and lead the whole thing and come up with your answers, and all have the same grade at the end. It doesn't, I'm fine with any of that. But it will be due at the end of the hour on Thursday. Okay? Okay.